Hoodcast. Very similar, as a lot of you pointed out, to the Holocaust in sounding names. So hopefully we will give you more entertainment value than that. Uh, at least draw with it.
Yeah, I'll try.
I
I'll try and support you in that, Aaron.
Thank you. I Don't worry, you don't have to make the most of the time you have left with me. I have just shaved my head out of boredom. I am joined today with my friend, Slipknot enthusiast, and fellow comic, Ciara Jack. Ciara, thank you for joining me.
Hello.
Yeah,
Lovely to see you and your freshly shaved bonds.
thank you. Just to ruin any semblance of professionalism, this is our second run through, but my audio fucked up, so here we're going. So, Ciara, what have you been doing with your life in lockdown? What's been going on? What's new with you?
It is literally cricket noise at this point because I have not really done a huge amount. I'm a freelancer and that well has dried up. It is literally watching really, really dry. Like, I love me a political documentary at the best of times. But I don't know what it's about being in threatening situations that makes me want to frighten myself even further. So I've been watching a lot of documentaries and drawing quite harrowing caricatures of politicians. So I've been really nourishing my mental health, basically.
You've just been, focusing on the worst aspects of civilization right
Yeah,
now
I think
at
that's
this
what I
current
need.
time.
Yeah, everyone else is doing sourdough starters and inducting themselves into online yoga programs, and I'm doing illustrations of Dominic Cummings and listening to Adam Curtis going, to understand why the world is fucked, we need to go back to Trump's original empire. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, that one bitter lake where Saudi Arabia just made a lake in Africa because they wanted to for no real reason, and that's his weirdest one because it has all this really serious political energy, and then it goes to like absolutely incongruent pictures and images and music, and then back to this serious political discussion, and then after a while, after the documentary, you're just thinking, what? It's just you're just perturbed more than informed.
Oh, I love Adam Curtis. He's so he uses offcuts of footage. This is proper nerdy. So he uses offcuts, or he favors offcuts, because if you think about it, a lot of the politicians is their best moments. So it's when they're delivering a speech, it's when they're kind of waving. He prefers the bits where it's kind of the bits that broadcasters tend to chop off. So it humanizes them a little bit. It kind of takes them down a peg. I'm sure this is the chipper, fun-loving podcast material you
Well,
wanted.
we've had stories about like drugs, anal, that really harrowing stuff about dealing with autism and the government and all of that sort of stuff. It's not a place for an easy listen, I don't know why the sponsors aren't clamoring for me right now. This has been sponsored by Raid Shadow Legend. Now, please go into detail about all of the psychological abuse you suffered in that past relationship.
Yeah, that is like the one show levels of tone change. If you're going from, and I just had a really bad trip, and it started bringing up all this kind of very early trauma I suffered. Anyway, if you need a VPN service to browse the internet, I recommend NordVPN.
That would be amazing. Just trying to cheer people up.
Yeah, I think you should deliberately try and source very tonally different sponsors for this podcast. I think you should be going for like kind of bath bombs and
Plants versus Zombies and I think what I might do is what Stanhope. That was a 2 out of 10 weak effort, Hood. But I might do what Stanhope does and just decide who I want to sponsor me and say I'm sponsored by them until they inevitably cave and just give me money to stop.
Who do you want to be sponsored by? Who are you craving?
The dream is Fake Taxi. The dream is Fake Taxi or Pornhub.
Oh my god! What? Do you know what? They probably got serious dollar because those are not expensive videos to make. Let's be honest. It's not like Vixen levels production, okay? This is.
I'm glad it's not just me who knows the name of porn companies. You know, it's not exactly even Brazzers or Naughty America, is it? You know.
Do you know what my favourite thing to do? And I know this is exploiting a gender stereotype here. Is I do think guys don't expect women to know those names. So my favourite thing is to just name drop one like Brazzers, and then what guys do that thing of registering that they know what you're talking about, but trying to not visually show you that they know that what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
just,
Brazzers,
like, you don't know that they don't watch porn. When if you're a bloke, that whole conversation would just be like, minge, come on tits, bukkake, or slag.
Oh, is that how men talk to each other? I didn't realise. So when we're not in the room, that's how you really pare it down.
That and the occasional grunt or football reference. That's about it. That's all you'll get.
Yeah. Wow. It's nice to have it confirmed, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, it is exactly. There's no depth or nuance to it. It is exactly what you've always assumed it is. So, trying to make it a bit more intellectual, this kind of porn thing. Where do you stat? What's your kind of take on it, on porn and sex work in general? Are you for or against it, or?
I think sex work needs to be legalized, obviously properly, and I think, but it can't just be legalized. There has to be bureaucracy in place to protect the sex workers. Because I know a thing came out not that long ago saying about Amsterdam is everyone sees it as this kind of place where you can go and have sex and the workers are protected. They're not. There's trafficking that happens there too, and I think we have to. It can't just begin and end at that. God, this is turning into fucking news night, Aaron.
Yeah, like Newsnight would name drop Brazzers. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Kirsty Wark, and today we are talking to Brazzers. But more on that story later.
I'm looking a bit like, is it Simon Evans at the moment? I just need to lose like 60% of my muscle mass and
I'm like if Emily Maitlis mated with a barn owl. That's the fantasy I'm giving you.
I'm Nigel Evans on human growth hormone, and this.
But yeah, so I could talk all day about stuff this because I think. Okay, we're going to get deep here. I think the reason Pornhub is as unregulated as it is, and I think like obviously, so they've during the coronavirus pandemic, they've done things like making Pornhub Premium free for Italians and here in Britain as well. And they have this big side to them where they say, "Oh, we're charitable," but actually, there's a lot of abuse that gets put on Pornhub. So they're not this big kind of benign porn force. Benign porn force is a drama that we create. By the end of this podcast, Aaron.
Movies, is it?
No. So I think it's like anything. It's a red herring to think it's a big kind of liberal space on the web. Let's be honest. It's seedy, and I think it's seedy because sex is still taboo. Yeah. Where seediness always follows taboo.
Yeah, and because there's so much stigma attached to it, and people feel still fundamentally uncomfortable talking about it or having it publicized, you then leave it for people who are, if it's anything that has like a black market seedy element, you leave rife for exploitation and abuse.
Yeah.
But that's not me saying that you should be able to take a GCSE in camgirling and being taught at school how to set up an OnlyFans. You know, there has to be some sort of in between, like a puritanical stance and like free Hitachis at fucking schools. You know.
Well, first of all, you've clearly never been to Essex. Second of all,
I try not to. No offense.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think there has to be like there's progression now. Like people are being taught about relationships as well as sex ed, and you know it's all well and good telling girls you can say no. You can tell the guy to wear a condom, but that has to fundamentally be happening in society. And I know that PSHE lessons are a start, but society isn't just composed of PHE lessons. It is everything is filtered through media, social media, what we see in cinema. So it has to, I think it's going to be a bigger change in that.
And having no real adequate sex education, because I don't know how sex education was for you, but there was one nation like, if you stick your dick anywhere near someone, you will get AIDS and it will fall off and you will die.
Did you get taught the kind of abstinence approach where it was like, don't do it at all?
It wasn't like don't do it at all, but it was just like there was one lesson where you saw a lot of minging or cheesy genitals,
Oh,
and then
yeah,
one of how, like, if you have to do this thing that they've implied is disgusting, you've got to wear this condom. And that was about it, really, from what I remember.
Yeah, we definitely got a bit of that too. I don't really remember a huge amount about STIs, if I'm honest. It was definitely the kind of don't get pregnant.
Just don't get pregnant at all.
Yeah. And which is important for girls, definitely.
Yeah.
But nothing kind of prepares you for being in a situation where you get caught in the moment. And back then, Plan B wasn't available when we were teenagers. So I think there also has to be that side of it of, what if you don't use protection when you should have? What do you then do next? Because it will happen. And one thing I don't like as well is that our system denies that teenagers have sex. Yeah. Like, it kind of is like, don't do it if you're under 16. It's like, but they should also, and I know people would shrink at this, they should acknowledge that teenagers will. Yeah. Even if you tell them.
I mean, I lost my virginity like 13, 14, and a lot of people lose it around the same age and earlier. So I don't see why there's that sort of shrinking violet approach to it, because parents just feel uncomfortable about it, maturely acknowledging their kids as sexual beings. And then to bring it back to porn with like inadequate facilities for sexual education, porn becomes people's like teacher for it. Like, I know a lot of guys have learned everything about sex from porn, and that's such a really unhealthy way of looking at sex,
Yeah. Oh, you can always tell those guys who have, just the way they talk about it. And also, I know I have female friends who have come away from one night stands and like been slapped across the face and stuff, and that they are mirroring what they've seen in porn, which is dangerous.
Yeah, you just kind of learn it from, and all that hair pulling, spitting, punch, slapping. That's fine if you agree to it and it's going to happen. And, a lot of times it can be quite fun. But, like, you have to know, don't you?
That's it. It's all about consent. And I think, obviously, porn is not the place to learn about consent.
No,
let's be honest.
Not. Yeah, like, it's sort of like, in porn, sex is sort of just sprung upon the woman mostly, or coerced out of them, rather than a mutually enjoyable experience that it should be. Yeah. Just to wrap up the porn bit, because it's gone a bit heavy, and to end it on a funnier bit. Have you ever heard of, because I've seen this thing that happened a lot. I've never tried it, but I know a lot of my female friends who've had it done to them, where like a guy will like pull out and like slap his cock like on the clitoris or above the vagina, and like assume that's pleasurable. Like, you like that? Have you heard of that as a thing at all?
Yeah, it's in porn all the time.
Yeah.
I've seen that in porn. Yeah.
I imagine it's not pleasurable at all. Yeah. I don't possess a clitoris.
At the risk that a family member listens to this. I'm going to say probably not.
Do we get a second opinion? Flora? You know that thing where a guy pulls his dick out and like slaps his knob on a clit? That is not pleasurable, is it?
No.
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 Really.
Not into it.
So it's confirmed. Thank you, Flora. Flora Wheeler, everyone. I love how every so often I'll just summon Flora into the podcast.
Summon the woman.
You're basically the paperclip that used to come up on Microsoft Word. It looks like you're trying to slap a penis, but you haven't saved yet.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I want to believe that Clippy has a clip penis, because if Clippy had a normal human penis, that'd be horrifying. What are your thoughts on this, Ciara?
That's such an abstract notion of a paperclip genitals. I genuinely, do they just sort of daisy chain? Surely they just sort of daisy chain together.
Yeah,
And that's
like,
quite sweet, actually. I
Oh.
don't think I want to picture Clippy
Yeah.
being forced into brazzers. I think
miss
Clippy deserves
Clippy.
better.
I feel like pure
Yeah.
shit. Just want Clippy back.
Yeah.
Oh, Clippy's too wholesome for this.
Yes, Clippy is too wholesome for this.
So, dialing way back, we've covered some important things.
You dived straight in the deep end. I respect that.
Hopefully, this was exactly what you expected this to be, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
You were saying that you've been drawing a lot of political kind of sketches and all of that sort of stuff. You've been doing that for a while. How long have you been sort of doing art in general, or doing these kind of drawy things?
So I've always, as long as I can remember, to be honest, I kind of knew that I had, like, when I was drawing, I was slightly better than a kid, so I knew that I was good at it. And when I feel like GCSE, I definitely got to explore things like acrylic painting and things like that. And then sixth form, I really got to experiment with drawing politicians and got better at drawing faces, life drawing. At uni, I was a comment editor, opinion editor, and editor of the Arts magazine. So I did a lot of drawing then for publication. I've always painted and stuff like that. And it was recently in the last 2 years that I felt like, well, I'm into satire. I'm very interested in politics. I should probably start drawing politicians. I know satire, satirical paintings have never changed anything, but it's cathartic at the very least.
and it's a fun little thing. Do you enjoy the guy? Is it Steve Bell, the guy who does the caricatures in The Guardian, or do you have any?
Oh yeah, don't mind him. He's all right. It's not. I feel newspaper style caricatures all are of a similar kind of vein.
Yeah.
You've got the ones that are like that, or you've got the ones that you see in Private Eye, the sort of the kind of more traditional cartooning kind of thing, which I also enjoy.
So it does seem like once you've seen one in newspapers, you have seen them all. But do you are you influenced by that style at all, or do you take your caricatures in a different way, in a different direction?
I just try and make them grotesque. I just want the politician to look ugly and unpleasant. And the ones I've been doing a lot at the moment are just kind of like, just kind of black bile kind of pouring out of the orifices in their face, which I wanted to look scary. And then I realised it's in a fucking Billie Eilish video, so it looks like I've copied Billie Eilish. God, what a Gen Z problem to have. But yeah. So yeah, I just want them to look unpleasant, want them to look nasty.
Yeah. Don't mind. You're trying to make them out to be as they are, like you, as unflattering and as unstylized. Because especially now that British politics has become more presidential, they're absolutely all image obsessed, and they want control over your image. So I suppose that's one of the most interesting things you can do, is take that control away from them, I suppose.
Yeah, because a lot of caricature is about making them funny. I find politicians at the moment distinctly not funny. And I know Boris Johnson deliberately messes up. There's been numerous reports from journalists that he messes up his hair deliberately before he goes to do a press appearance, because he wants to be. It's harder. I mean, comedians use humor to kind of take people out of the knees a lot of the time, because if you can make someone laugh, it's harder for someone to really kind of get a cliff hold on you. And I think that's what he does, is it's kind of like, oh, you can't take him serious, he's a buffoon. So that's why I like drawing him to look icky. And
it's sort of like crocodile tears almost. Like you want to appear harmless, but really there's the man's the predator, essentially, not in a that sense, but not in a Me Tooable way, but in a sort of he's a shark or a crocodile, like, and all of that is kind of his armor from criticism, and you have kind of Boris the character who's very different to Alexander Boris DePfeffel Johnson, the man,
Yeah, whose girlfriend, like, I'm not against age gaps at all, but his girlfriend is not that much older than us, and
Really?
he's late 50s. Yeah, she's 31, 32.
Christ, yeah, that's not.
You might be a bit younger than me. I'm 26, turning 27 soon.
Yeah, I turned 24 in January.
Oh, you baby! Okay, I take that back. She's a little bit older than me. She's
yeah, we're not going back to that. Like, when in high school or whatever, you're 16 and your friend's 50, or like your friends are 16 and maybe you're a late bloomer that year and you're 15 and you're treated like you're a fetus. You're a fetus.
You are a fetus in a bell jar.
the best part of you. Oh, I watched Full Metal Jacket for the first time last night, and one of the lines, like, the best part of you dribbled down your mum's arse crack and left a stain on the couch. Oh, that's fantastic. But wow. I hear on the grapevine that you are taking requests for these caricatures.
Yeah. If you want me to draw a particular politician, please message me on Instagram, Twitter. Do it. I'm taking inspiration because, let's be honest, I've got a lot of time on my hands.
So
what I was going to say was I can't keep watching Adam Curtis document Empty Inside. I'd prefer to draw someone and feel empty inside. So.
At least you have some sort of autonomy over that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if a friend of yours was, say, to request a drawing of Michael Gove being Dominic Raab being pegged by Priti Patel, whilst Michael Gove masturbates in the cabinet office, how much would that cost?
So I don't charge. I'm literally just taking requests to fill my time. But that, Aaron, sounds like a very specific commission.
Yeah. I imagine that would be a lot more effort than your standard commission, or maybe that would be a lot of time commitment.
You've got to anticipate Dominic Raab's face, his face expressions. You've got to anticipate the mood, the scenery. Where's Priti Patel doing this? It's there's a lot to take into consider, and so I would charge a price for it.
Yeah.
I did have something to say, and that has completely wiped my.
Sorry, it certainly paints a picture, doesn't it?
That is a. Ooh.
But if someone were to want one of these, where would one be able to contact you?
Instagram or Twitter, which is @_Ciara Jack. Ciara is spelled like the R&B singer Ciara, so it's Ciara. Since this beat is automatic, super hypnotic, funky, fresh. Use it. Aaron did what I can only describe as uncle at a wedding dancing.
I'm very good at. I can actually dance, believe it or not. I just prefer to be shit,
It's just, shit it. Right. This is okay. I have shit dancing is more fun than sexy fun dancing. Also, shit karaoke.
Oh God.
If you turn up to a karaoke and start singing if you start singing Les Miserables, get off the stage.
What do you re-oak often? Have you ever re-oaked, karaoked?
So I've only sung on stage a few times, and it took a lot of determination, singing training, and stomach clenching from the audience. So I'm not that good at singing, but I have done it at the castle in Norwich once or twice.
What song do you remember? What your songs were?
I sang "I Got You, Babe" by Kiki D and Elton John.
Nice.
Oh, that's Sonny and Cher. What did they sing? No, "Don't Go Breaking My Heart." Kiki D sang. Don't ooh, nobody knows So I did that one with my friend Ollie, who is 6'8" and gay. So the chemistry was actually quite similar to Kiki D and Elton John. And then I did, Holiday. Not Holiday. Sorry, I didn't do Holiday by Madonna. I did Telephone by Lady Gaga.
Excellent. I have done Don't Ya by the Pussycat Dolls and Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler.
Oh, those are both. Do you know what? The last one that requires some diaphragm work. That is, you have to belt that one out.
Yeah, that was yelled. It was not pleasant for anyone other than me. I was.
Now and then I get a little bit tired, and you never come around.
Turn around, bright eyes.
Every now and then. Oh, this could be beautiful, Aaron.
Well, we'll have to hit up the castle.
Yeah. I feel like we're on prior to lockdown, me and Aaron were, I believe, on 2 of the same night outs. We did a gig together at Gonzo's.
Yeah.
And then were you at the waterfront as well?
We actually went off to we couldn't get in, so we went to the Rumsey Wells with Chris Norton Walker and my mate Jack, and then we went just back to mine and watched B-movie.
Oh, that's really wholesome. I went to the waterfront and got absolutely destroyed.
Do you miss the sesh? Do you miss going out at the moment?
I miss the sesh. I miss the sesh, Aaron. I miss getting apocalyptically fucked. Yeah, I just miss it. I just missed going out and listening to some absolute bops, listening to some tunes.
Because you can do this, but it isn't really much of a. I mean, I'm in my element with the old autism thing, but you know, it's not a substitute for actual social interaction, is it? You know?
No, it's not. It's really hard because, like, I do go past my friend's house and have a conversation with them in the street from the window, and that's nice, but it's not the same as just having a proper good night out, going dancing, getting sweaty. Having drama. I miss drama. Like last time, I'm sure I can say this. There was a little bit of drama. But like, I just missed coming the next morning, waking up and going, oh, they're not talking to them, and then they did this with this person, and I miss that.
You miss some of that hot goss.
I miss the tea being piping, Aaron.
You want some tea? You want some?
I want hot tea poured into my mouth. Oh, did I tell you? So last time I was at the waterfront, I ended up dancing with my friend James, and we tried to do that dance from Pulp Fiction, where they kind of do the slow dance, and it was cool. And then we kind of got out of control, and I flattened my friend James, who is a lovely, delicious gay man, on the floor in the waterfront. And it was as I did that, fell on each other, that I remembered you saying at Gonzo's, Jesus, I think even gonorrhea is airborne at the waterfront.
Because I love.
And there was a pic. My friend received a picture of me sat on the floor, and I'm gonna name drop him. Josh had sent this friend saying, "Oh, Ciara sat on the floor, brave for the waterfront."
Did you get checked out after that, mate?
Checked out?
Did you go to the clinic after sitting down there?
I had to go and swab myself afterwards.
A 15-year-old girl tried to punch me in the face one of the times.
Do you know what? If you did mention where you'd gone out in Norwich and you went, yeah, 15-year-old girl tried to punch me in the face, I would have gone, yeah, waterfront.
Yeah, you would have just didn't know.
Did she have a septum piercing? Of
course she
piercing?
did. She was the emo equivalent of, can I speak to a manager, please? And
sorry, no, 15-year-old girl that's punching you in the face. That is the waterfront equivalent of cash me outside. How about that?
It is. It's a rite of passage. If you haven't upset one of the urchins. It was a While She Sleeps gig, and I was at the front, and she kept trying to push past me, and I kept just holding my nerve, and I just sort of gently, because I didn't see it, I gently sort of put my slightly stomped on the foot to get get the message of fuck off. And then she clawed me on the back of my head all the way down my head, like there was like blood coming out of the back of my head. And I turned around and I just went, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" And she threw like a punch, and I ducked, and I just went, "Excuse me, young lady," and she just, I've never felt older.
And this was pre-head shave as well. So
This was pre-head shave, yeah. So I just fell asleep. I slept it off and I woke up and I saw these massive gashes and like all this blood in my head. Sort of forgotten about it. Just like, yeah, fuck, that crazy bitch Wolverined me.
It's a dutty place and dutty things happen there.
Yeah, I do love a bit of duttiness though. I think because with Nights Out, they've sort of got to be shit for them to be enjoyable in a sense that they've got to be a bit grimy, a bit dirty, and have reasonably cheap drinks. Because otherwise, if I go somewhere a bit more bougie, I feel immediately out of place. I don't know if that's the same with you.
Yeah, or if it's a bit bougie for that place, absolutely. First of all, bougie places never have good music. Like, name a bougie place where the music has been spot on. Like,
No.
The last time we went somewhere bougie, my friends were appallingly drunk. Like, when you meet up with your friends and you think, oh no, they're the problem.
They've already started way before you've got there.
Yeah.
And they're on another like fucking frequency for you.
Yeah. The sesh has happened for them in a big way. And like we ended up sat outside and we were in a place where it's so hard to describe. It was like someone's 50th birthday. Like, everywhere was nice Prosecco glasses. People were sort of not really dancing. There was really loud music where you couldn't hear anything, but people were for some reason not dancing.
Slightly just this a little bit maybe.
Just sort of, yeah, kind of posh bobbing. And it was just shit.
Like any sort of enjoyment or physical movement is like a real social faux pas. Like you might as well like drop a big dollop on like someone's table, like do a huge log, like I don't see the whole stiff upper lip kind of like classiness. I don't understand it in the way that you seem automatically it's the done thing to seem like you're absolutely not having a good time.
Yeah. I would rather see someone who's bad at dancing just absolutely having a great time than somebody who's trying so hard to look good and like just.
It's embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, because what they do. Like it's completely obvious. It's completely transparent.
I'd rather see someone like vomit in the middle of the street than like fall on the bonnet of a Citroen Saxo than someone sort of mildly bop to some Shania Twain,
What would you, if you ever, weddings are a whole other thing. Like, do you know what I hate about modern weddings being classy is I want a shit 80s disco. Don't you dare take that away from me. Don't like.
Yeah. I want some Queen on. Don't want to miss a thing. I want all.
Oh my God, I love Don't Want to Miss a Thing. I want to belt that out from the back of the room and then ideally cry on someone.
Yeah. Yeah, because weddings have to be hammy and hokey. Because if they're too stiff upper lip, it just ruins any sort of sense of fun that you could have there. Like, I don't know. I think weddings are already too expensive and there's too much pressure and stress on the whole thing. So to have to be this really upper class ritual makes the whole thing just a lot worse for everyone involved.
So I wrote, this is going to sound so, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, Ciara, we get it. You did English lit, right? Get over yourself. I wrote a play about this. But me and my friend were comparing notes on weddings. We'd both had a thing recently where we'd been to them and just felt completely nauseous throughout the whole day because it's so like this is the level of love you have to aspire to. You have to be this perfect. You have to be this well dressed. You have to be so in love, and you have to have really expensive food. You have to have a 3-course meal and drink wine, which just knocks you out. It's like Christmas dinner. You basically are expected to have Christmas dinner, then go out, be happy and awake, and then dance and not be sick. Please explain to me how you do that.
Yeah.
And yeah,
like you've got all this like I don't know, sea bass and all of this dinner wine and like roast beef and vegetables and
which is lush. Don't get me wrong.
yeah.
Sis loves all of that, but oh my god.
But then you've got to have it all swilling around in your belly whilst you're dancing around.
To Aerosmith, like
yeah. I don't see the need for a big wedding. I mean, like, yes, maybe don't do the do the meal in spoons and then go or whatever, but
a spoons wedding,
yeah,
a Brexit wedding.
But like, it doesn't have to be like a Downton Abbey scene.
Downton Abbey scene is literally it. I think that is and it makes me really sad when you watch things like Don't Tell the Bride, because what that show is basically doing is the male gender role tearing down the female gender role's expectations. That's what it is. It's here's everything the girl has been brought up to believe in. We're gonna now make a man under extreme pressure take that away from her and surprise her with it on their big day, which already has a lot of expectation built up around it because the parents, society, whatever. And it's just really sad.
And really
I find it harrowing.
Let's have this man who clearly is out of his depth, really just upset his bride.
Yeah. And it's just harrowing. And like, don't get me wrong though, because I'm a sentimental person. I cry at everything. And like, I went to my friend's wedding a few years back, and I didn't expect to cry, but when she walked in, floods of tears. Like, but equally, I don't think I want that for me. I don't know. I think for me, and it's so hard because like a lot of my family, in fact, all of my family except for my parents, don't live in Britain. So to get everyone over here who's elderly, it would just be too stressful. Yeah. Also, I don't care about a white dress that much.
Yeah, I think that if your entire relationship kind of is based around this ritual, it's not a very strong relationship,
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just view it as a bit kind of not entirely necessary, and sometimes people get so het up about this day, and I think it might have something to do with why a lot of marriages end in divorce, is that you're not really building something with someone. You're kind of just casting someone in the role of your wife or husband or wife without you're desperate for that moment, rather than, oh, is it right with this person? Does this really work? Do I even really want this?
Yeah, exactly. And I think everything that makes a relationship good is built outside of a wedding. And I can understand why you'd want a wedding to just celebrate that. Totally get it. But I think I'd like to believe people don't just get married for the wedding, but why are they so expensive then?
I know, it seems like a bit of a rip. And then some people get married 6 or 7 times, and after the 3rd or 4th, I don't think I'd bother. I don't see why. I just like, all right, that's me. I'm tapping out. Like, my bank account is tapping out. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, that's it. I can't afford a fringe show, let alone to.
We before this all kicked off, weren't you working on your solo show?
Yeah, I was confirmed. I have a solo show called Weirdo Groupie. It's a work in progress. And I had it pretty much written, ready to go. Just the tonic, had a venue, and then pulled because of COVID. So.
Oh, that sucks. Next year, if it starts, I may have my show ready, so I may be joining you.
Oh, what's your show called? You don't know?
It was initially going to be called Gelos, the Greek god of humor and mirth and mischief, But I've changed it.
That.
I've changed it to autogonistophilia, which is the fetish of being, live on stage.
Oh, nice. Have
Yeah.
you ever considered doing Spank, the one where you can promote a show, but you have to do it naked?
If I got in more shape, I'd do it. Yeah, because like
Yeah,
I've lost like 3 stone since December, but
wow, congratulations.
because I don't know, with my body frame, I just pack it on, and I like to drink, and I like just eat.
Those two things. I've lost weight since lockdown. I've always been trying, but yeah, beer, wine,
It just happens, doesn't it?
carbs. Yeah. And
Uh,
I've been trying to be a bit healthier and not get pierced every day in lockdown, which is quite hard. But I have still lost weight, amazingly.
It's nice because it's just kind of like, what else really is there to do? Like you said, you're a freelancer, and so what do you sort of do freelance then, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind you asking. I am a copywriter, so if it can be anything from online blogs. So like I used to work for a really shite marketing company called, fuck it, I'll name them, Click Intelligence. They're really bad. And like basically it was really boring mum bloggers or like sort of cheap websites would want like SEO optimized blogs. So I would do research, but they'd ask for like 12 in a day, some of which would be like 500 words each. So that's quite a lot of work to do. So you kind of figure out a way of churning these out as quickly as possible. And so you end up just churning out these horrible, boring blogs. So it could be stuff like that, which makes money but isn't very gratifying.
Yeah.
Or you end up doing very personalized work on people's websites. You write feature pieces for them, or you can do product descriptions for companies who have products that they need to kind of flog and promote to people. And so it can be quite soulless, marketing driven work, but it pays the bills. I would like to be, a screenwriter and a journalist, but those don't pay. Those aren't easy money.
And they're hot, and they're really notoriously difficult to get into.
Yeah, cold pitching takes time, and time is money when you are a freelance writer. So unfortunately, having agencies who say, "I need 10 descriptions for this. Can you do it?" You go, "Yes, I can."
Yeah, and it's kind of always that offset between sort of monotony, tedious, soul-breaking, but kind of secure work, or something that you're actually passionate about, but you don't particularly want to be destitute.
Yeah, and like the heartbreaking thing is before COVID, I'd started to get pro gigs in London. I'd started to get paid for stand-up. Not much. I was doing like 5 and 10 minute slots, which was your kind of tryout pro slots, the kind of we like you, but we just want to check. And then everything went to fuck. So but that's always a good feeling when you get paid for something you really want to do. That's a good feeling.
I just started to get the odd paid gig, and Nelson, after my set of Gonzos that we did, gave me a hug and was like, "You're good enough to be paid now. Next time you come back, you're paid, you're ready." And I was just like, "Fucking."
You were great. Right. That was a really good gig.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed your set.
And it was nice just to. Because that was the first time I'd done a gig. That Gonzo's was the first place I performed where I didn't run the gig myself, because I had my own night before I started gigging elsewhere, which is not the way to do it, I figured out. But
that gives you important stage time. Stage time is important for thrashing out material, seeing if it works, getting confidence. Because like I still feel like I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I'm so confident that I feel like, yeah, I've got this sorted. I feel like every time I'm on stage, I'm building confidence. I'm building that kind of assurance that I know how to engage with the audience in a way that will make them receptive to what I'm saying. I feel like that's one of the biggest things I've learned through being an amateur to where I am now is how can I talk to the audience in a way that will make them want to listen to me?
Yeah. Where you can control and adapt and, interact in a sort of seamless way. Whereas, I don't know, I think I don't know. We'll go into how you do it, like if you how you salvage a gig or how you know when to say things. But I tend sort of just to plow through things like a battering ram, and if audiences
Like,
don't like it, they can
we're
fuck
in it
off.
together.
Yeah.
It's like when a ship goes down. Like, do you know what? We're all in this boat together. Let's all go down. Yeah. I think like because I'm doing a lot of stuff about politics, or like, I try and shroud it in anecdotes about my family to make it more digestible, I guess. But I feel like the reason I talk about politics is I feel like everyone should care. So I'm like, how can I convince the audience that they should care about what I'm talking about? So I'll kind of try and look people in the eye, and I'll kind of pull their leg and stuff, because I feel like to get people interested in what I'm talking about, I have to make them feel they're involved, really.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just an angry person going, this is shit.
Yeah, you're sort of going up to have a rant rather than actually working. You know, you've got to talk to an audience, haven't you? Not at them in that sense, and it's hard to build that relationship. If you could give anyone starting out on in stand up, or any performer any advice, what would the first thing a bit of advice you gave to someone just starting out now?
Get on stage. The first step you take on stage will be the hardest, because it'll feel like the world is plummeting beneath your feet. Just do it. Your first gig, you need to get it out of the way, no matter how shit it might be. Second of all, and I feel like it's two pieces of advice, take advice from other stand-ups from a pinch of salt, because being a female comic, I am always given unsolicited advice, and a lot of it is just bollocks, and it's other people peddling their insecurities as information. So if somebody comes up to you, so like the other day, like I've been doing this for like 5 years, I had a guy come up to me and say, oh, there's another guy on the bill who is not pro, he has patchy gigs. And he went, oh yeah, you should let him write for you, implying that I was shit and this guy knew what he was doing.
Let him write for you.
Yeah. And
Fucking hell.
It's really insulting. But you get, that's like the shit end of quite a big wedge, because you get a lot of people saying similar stuff like, oh, well, next time you might want to try this. It's like, I didn't ask, okay? If I asked, give me some advice. But I didn't, so shut up.
Yeah, I imagine it's different being a woman, but I do get a lot from people, and a lot of times it's like they're advising you to be more like them and their act.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah,
You've got to make your own mistakes at some point and stand up, because even if you have this, you know, for argument's sake, you know, you spend a year doing a half-baked character act with material that's has no structure, you need to, for whatever reason, get that out of your system, because it is maybe fledgling something else later on.
Yeah.
Like Stuart Lee, everyone has done that. Just get out of your system.
Yeah. Winter Fernanda told me that there's kind of the whole thing about old new, in that some stuff that you thought was quite good, but you didn't have a place for it. In a few months or a year's time, you might have a new bit for it, which you can add it, and you've changed it enough that it's not entirely new material, but you've already laid the foundations, and it's called kind of sort of old new in that way. And you know, something that might not work now might work when you have a more structured, coherent set.
Yeah. Keep yourself open to, you know, coming back to stuff. Don't deride yourself too harshly if you get stuff wrong. Yeah, like stand up is full of comedy nerds, and they are sometimes the worst people. I'm a comedy nerd. But we are the worst people. Like, I remember getting feedback from someone, and they said, yeah, this joke didn't land for me, and I didn't like the way this, and they're like pulling it apart. It's the kind of dissecting a clown thing, which can really make comedy joyless, and it shouldn't be joyless. There are going to be bad times, sure, but it shouldn't be joyless. Don't let other stand-ups make comedy joyless for you. That's a big piece of advice I would give.
Because you get a lot of people who've never quite made it, and they're pretty bitter human beings, and then they kind of take the joy and enthusiasm from newbies, and you
promoters,
yeah, exactly that.
Literally.
Yeah, they kind of just really fucking relish in clipping your wings almost.
Yeah, people who enjoy shooting you down or take comfort from your failures are clearly, they're going through some shit of their own. Like, they need to work it out. Like, it's horrible when they do it to you, but just bear in mind that they are clearly bitter for their own reasons, and probably a wanker, yeah.
Yeah, and if they're not paying you, which often than not they won't, you don't have to deal with them. You don't have to work with them. That's always an important thing to remember. You say you've been doing this for 5 years. Like, how did you get started? And when I asked that with everyone, I didn't want to lead with it because I wanted to actually have a proper conversation with you, because the formula of this podcast can get boring for me and other people. And I quite like talking to you, dude, to be honest.
Thank you. I got started at uni. I was in second year. I was going through a bit of a bad time, and I'd always known that I'd wanted to do stand up, and I'd heard there was like a stand up workshop happening with they build them as professional stand ups. Questionable, I realize in hindsight, but it was, fleshing out ideas for a set, and that felt so intimidating to me. And so I went along, and they were like, there's no pressure, but there'll be a stand-up night in the bar afterwards, and you can go and try your set out. And then, I kind of know, it was the first time I felt like I had a rush of, I want to do it, and I think I can do it. So I noted down some ideas, and I went, fuck it, I'm going to get on stage and try it. And that was the first time I did it. And, it was then a lot of local gigs. And I wish I'd understood then that was such a... Like, there are some people who have their first gig in London, and within a year they're doing semi-pro nights. That seems so far away now, that small gig in the Grad Bar, because it was years of tiny local gigs before I even got anywhere near London. But yeah, that's how I got started. I loved Have I Got News for You, loved Monty Python, loved Dylan Moran, loved Charlie Brooker. I knew I wanted to be making people laugh in some way. So
and it just happened,
Yeah, basically, I did the first gig, and then my second ever gig was at the Birdcage, and it was one of the best one of my best gigs. Like, I still got footage from it actually. And then just carried on from there. I had a few years where I wasn't very good, and I died on my hole a lot. But it was all part of it. That's what I like about Norwich. It's a creative place, so you can do these little local gigs and try out and figure out who you are. And
once you've got that sort of sense of identity and a solid 10, 15, you can then build to like having a tight 20 and start getting paid, and then in theory your own show, and then maybe breaking into the pros. Because my two have only really just started doing London, and really you have to crack London because of like all the networking and connections and the pay there. Because I don't know whether you've noticed.
Yeah, it's about spotting the progressor gigs, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's what I've found out, because I don't know, maybe London comics take this for granted, but it's not obvious to people who are coming into London from elsewhere where to start. Like, I started doing bringer gigs. I was losing a lot of money doing gigs in London because I was doing bringer gigs just to try and get a feel for who everyone was and everything. And it was only until a very nice semi-pro stand-up said, oh, you're wasting your time. You need to do this gig, and this gig, because they're progressors. You might be stuck on the opening sort of open mic fives for a while, but only then will you be in a chance of getting paid gigs on the weekend if you do these gigs. And but you won't know that unless you go to London and talk to people, talk to other stand-ups, be friendly and ask questions.
Yeah, you really have to know the right people to kind of get your foot in the door. Not in a nepotistic way, but a lot of people will know where to look, but otherwise you can waste years just doing gigs that no one sees in like bumfuck Suffolk,
Here's the question for you. What's your pet hate in stand-up? What do you hate hearing from other stand-ups? Even like out off stage?
Either put that in your set from anyone, audience members, stand-ups, or giving you, even if it's like, oh, you should do this bit. It's like, well, I don't like doing that bit anymore. Or, oh, if you talked about this, like, I don't know, I want to do my own thing. I do it to be empowered.
Advice.
But the absolute worst is when you're good, but you've done a gig that you haven't done quite well, but then you hear loads of other comics were saying, oh, he was shit then, or he's not done well with this gig, or he's really off form at the moment. and then other promoters or people who book nights that you maybe want to get on hear this stuff, and then you can't get those bookings. It's like, why have I'm good? Why have you done that? You know,
Yeah.
that's one of the
Being spirited.
shittiest things.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of posturing, masculine posturing in stand up, and I
Yeah.
find it really tiresome, to be honest.
Yeah.
And in a similar note is kind of my biggest hate is people saying, "Oh, what's your joke rate?" Fuck off. I don't have a joke rate. Like,
Yeah, like really, isn't that cliche? You have to have a laugh every 20 seconds, and that's not true. That's just for telly, isn't it? Really?
yeah, and also that comes down to editing as well. They will have like things like Live at the Apollo. They are cutting chunks out and cutting it so it feels quick paced. What's
Yeah.
great about stand up is you can personalize the night to you. That's one of my favorite things is talking to audience members.
Yeah, and you can actually have a decent relationship and have fun and connect with people. Because and also like a lot of comics like oh, fuck, I forgot his name, but he played Holly in the Red Dwarf, you know, the original.
Yeah. I know who you mean.
Yes. He will do very, very few jokes, and there'll be long silence, but he's the master of just eking out silence and timing and all of that sort of stuff. You don't always have to be like bang, 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 feedline, punchline. Like sometimes you can make the audience suffer a little bit and fuck with them, and that's a lot more fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, jokes are stupid. Like it's like they certain comics and certain people want to add all of the bureaucracy and the formulaic nature that you go to stand up to escape, and make you hate other jobs. So, but they want to add all of that sort of stuff to stand up. Like, have you heard about like accredited stand up schemes or whatever, like where you're like accredited? There's official comedy accreditation thing where like you get like this qualification, and if you've got this qualification, like promoters can see it, and like they know that you're good enough for some reason. I've heard talk of that before, and I don't. It seems like bollocks to me, and a very stupid idea.
Yeah,
But
it's monetization. It's people trying to make a buck off young stand-up starting out, think that there's somehow like a set way to do it, and there isn't. And having, it's like when I see people who've done an MA in comedy, I'm like, fine, do that if that's what gets you interested and you're doing that MA because you're fascinated by how comedy works. Don't do an MA in comedy because you think an agent will care.
Yeah, that like it's kind of the key to the automatic key to get in. Like there's no kind of magic bullet, because everyone would just do that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Frustrating, but yeah.
Do you have any more pet peeves apart from joke ratio?
I guess this is true of general life, but creepy male stand-ups, like hitting on you. That is a problem, and it's like stand-ups grabbing me or like making inappropriate comments. That's like, but like me and all female stand-ups, I think have had that.
I didn't want to obviously relegate you to just being the official, or not relegate you, but like cast you as the official ambassador for women comics. Like as a woman, what is wrong with the state of how female comics are treated? Because sometimes you just want to be, I imagine, considered a comic. Like I'm not, like in the same way I wouldn't want to be known just as autism guy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, it's that thing of having to have a certain amount of sex appeal, I guess. There's a bit of that on telly, I guess, like women kind of looking very classic glamour.
Yeah.
I'm a bit more like, I'm not saying I look like her because I fucking don't, but I'm a bit more Debbie Harry. Like I want it to be a bit more messy and a bit more punky. I love Kathy Burke. I want people who are messy and gnarly. Be like Sex
Yeah.
appeal is great, but I like it when I'm in charge of it. I don't like it when a broadcaster is in charge of it.
Yeah, you don't want someone to control kind of your image, and you're a grown adult woman. You don't want people dressing you. You're more capable or styling you. You're more than capable of doing that yourself, clearly. And in what should be a fundamentally emancipating, liberating process, you get more and more people trying to control it and bureaucratize it and corporatize it. Yeah, and I think that's any sort of marginalized community, any comic from that, you've got to fight against that, especially so.
Yeah, it's the opening page in Netflix at the moment, the kind of thing with the different categories.
Yeah.
There's a lot of female stand-ups in that mixture of races and types of comedian, which is really nice, and it's really cool to see. But I would say there is a kind of general tone at the minute in comedy that's preferred the kind of wryness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm bored of wry.
Yeah, you want something different, and it's almost as if in comedy, like with everything else, like with the new metal boom with Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and Korn, and I don't count Slipknot as part of it, even though it's clearly influenced by it. That's something entirely different, and so System of a Down. But you get the scene gets so and so popular, like punk and grunge did, and then you get less talented people trying to do the same things in a worse way, and then that whole thing just collapses in on itself, and then a new thing comes, doesn't it? Almost.
Yeah, and it's perfectly normal that would be the case. It's like the alternative comedy in the 80s. Like anyone who's a fan of stand-up or sitcoms will kind of wish they were in that era of alternative comedy in the 80s. Maybe it will come back. I don't know, but it's certainly the circuit is not as small as it was. We're not going to have that same revolution again.
Exactly, but you have to. But in a different way, that doesn't mean you give in to be defeatism. You just have to do a new revolution, do another one.
That said, I ain't doing any sort of revolution at the moment. I always have these big ideas about doing stuff on YouTube or like trying more stuff on stage, but I am out of ideas. I am comedically flaccid at the moment.
You need to get rock hard.
I need to be rock hard. Yeah, I need comedy brazzers.
Erection. Wow. So I should just do my Vince McMahon voice. Adding another wrestling anecdote, and then we'll do a couple of more segments, then we'll wrap up. But one time, because Vince McMahon liked to book himself in angles where he was doing sex stuff with his much younger, hotter female wrestlers. And once he described Trish Stratus, an innovator, one of the best wrestlers, women's wrestlers and wrestlers of all time. He described her, not very practical, that a lot of the female talent ended up with breast implants, But he described them as succulent, tender breasts. Doesn't that just make your teeth fizz?
Yeah, that does that. Yeah, I've got tooth sweaters now. Yeah,
I don't like it. There's a lot.
Oh, you should never describe women the same way that you would describe a baked chicken. That's
something
generally
you'd get from fucking Nando's.
Yeah. Nando's talk and women should not be in the same Venn diagram, as far as I'm concerned.
Hugely distressing. We're gonna do the last two segments, if all right. Partly because
I'll allow it.
Need to pee.
Yeah, sometimes this practical means to an end. Absolutely.
Firstly, you do a podcast of yourself. Could you briefly, well, not briefly, but can you just name it and say what you talk about, kind of thing, like?
So, I run a podcast called The Unexceptionals with my co-host, co-producer, and general the better talent in it, Anita Ngube. We're going to call it The Unpronounceables because she is from Zimbabwe and has a click in her last name, and my name is Irish, so people always mispronounce it when they see it. But to be honest, what we wanted to do was, so a lot of podcasts that make it to the top 10 of iTunes are signed comics talking to other signed comics or signed talent. So it's a lot of actors, comics. Like there's a James Acaster one about food. So what we wanted was to interview everyday people like they're celebrities. So NHS workers, teachers, you name it. Members, as a rule, it's tended to be LGBT and BAME. We obviously didn't want it to be lots of men. It hasn't ended up being that way quite organically, which is nice.
That's good.
So every episode is different things. So the best, do you know what? One of the best ones though is a bin man. He was a bin man. He's called Matty, and that one is so funny just because the stories. He gets rid of fly tips, and he found a bag of sex toys. And just talking about the shit he finds in people's bins is weirdly kind of cathartic to hear about. We had a teacher who was adopted and talked about kind of finding out who her mum was. We had a junior doctor who was, as far as I could tell, a sadist. Talked to a Mormon. That was one of the more serious episodes. So yeah, it's called the Unexceptionals. We were about to record series 2, and then we got put on hold because of Corona. So series 2 is coming at some point in the future, but we don't know when. But series 1 is all on your favorite podcasting platforms, so Spotify, iTunes, Acast. Yes, so that's it. The Unexceptionals, and we are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at _Unexceptionals. Sorry, that came out automatically. That was the spiel.
No, it's cool. It sounds amazing because sometimes people's real lives are like stranger than fiction almost. You don't necessarily have to be famous or have these high status jobs or be prominent in society to have a fucking crazy life and be interesting.
This is the thing. Me and Anita are both very much sort of people who we love talking to strangers and talking, because I kind of thought about being a journalist or kind of doing op-ed stuff. So a lot of my kind of formative years around sort of uni and graduating was sort of interviewing random people, and I love that. I'm quite a nervous, introverted person, but once you kind of break through that threshold of just talking to randomers, most people are quite interesting. And we wanted to kind of tap into that feeling of when you talk to a stranger at the pub and it turns out they have this whole backstory and you never would have talked to them. So we kind of wanted to make me sound like a pretentious person, but harness that feeling.
Darling, how does that make
Oh my god.
Spill the tea.
Spill the tea, sis. Yes.
Okay, so that's fascinating, and I will definitely be giving. I'm sorry, I didn't know this existed until now, but I will be injecting it into my nearest vein.
Do it.
Yes.
Shoot up with the Unexceptionals. Follow Anita Nlube as well. She is Anita N3 on Instagram and I think Twitter, but you will get her handle for Twitter as well on our social medias.
Excellent, and obviously you'll ping me whatever you want me to plug when we have this. So how I usually end the podcast is something I like to call the last word, which is pretty descriptive, but I like to end it with a sort of story, or it can be usually people like to end it on a positive note or something absurd or surreal, but just anything that's happened, any story anything that's happened to you that's pretty amusing or enlightening or whatever. And I like to give like my comics, my guests, that last word. So Ciara, what is your last word?
A story that's happened to me that is amusing. Oh my god.
Anything that's on your mind, really.
Anything. So, a lot of people I know during lockdown are finding it to be quite a romantic time, actually. I know a lot of people who are forging relationships. So, obviously, people are absolutely breaking lockdown with things like Grindr and stuff like that. But there are people who are kind of almost like, it's like having a partner who's out to war. You're kind of writing these long messages and it's really romantic. And I've had friends who are basically just kind of having this weird, I hate the term blitz spirit because the way Boris Johnson has used it has been appalling, but there has been a weird, almost romantic, that I think there should be a COVID rom-com that comes out of this, because you do forge these kind of Obviously, lust is important and stuff when you first meet someone, but it's coming across that these people are kind of, I don't know.
Because you can't just fuck straight away at the moment.
No,
You
yeah, you can't just have them drag their balls across your face.
know? Like a squeegee on a car.
No, but I know these people, and they're having really
Not
nice
just
time.
Jackson Pollock on someone's tits, you know.
Oh my god, Aaron. Well, I won't name her, but she's talking to somebody who she met on, I think, Plenty of Fish. Is that one of them?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah. And she's been having phone conversations. She's not even been FaceTiming them because she feels like phone conversations are more kind of, it's like that twirly phone cord kind of.
A bit more intimate in a way.
Yeah, and I
They're
think
just like.
yeah, yeah, it's not romantic to FaceTime someone where you look like a thumb. I do not FaceTime well. I do not at all. I am too owl-faced. I don't need. Do you know what? If I was courting a lover, a corona courting a lover, I don't want them to feel like a trapped dormouse. I don't.
Yeah. So you're thinking that corona is kind of starting wooing or courtship in a more traditional way rather than, you know, the Tinderization of hooking up, of just like, you know, like a few conversations, postcode sent, and just nut, and then you never interact with that human being ever again.
Yeah, I think it prolongs it. I think it makes you feel like, what is about this person that I want to keep talking to them, and I want to eventually, will it be a relief to see them when this is all over? I feel like COVID is going to be a harrowing but romantic.
Yeah, and there's going to be a terrible film called like The Virus of Love or something.
Oh my god, yeah.
There is now, because it's almost as if there's two people who write screenplays on this call.
It's gonna sound like a shit Roxy Music song.
It'll be the most hammed up nonsense. Oh god.
Oh my god! And then at the end, they could be holding hands and they're on ventilators.
Just sort of Romeo and Juliet together.
Yeah. Oh my god, the balcony situation, the clandestine meeting, is such a that is a Shakespearean trope.
Oh my god.
It could be explored.
I think maybe we should seriously discuss this.
I think we should. The virus. It's like the swarm or something.
Yeah. So it's sort of reset love, which is a sweet way, and also maybe like you'll end up not fornicating with people that you regret afterwards. So that's nice. That's a nice thought, actually.
Yeah, it sort of popped out of nowhere, but I'm right. That's it. That's my final word. It's that I think that coronavirus will be harrowing, and it will be challenging, and it will be all the things that politicians have said it is going to be over the last however many weeks. But I think it will also be a hot, steamy fun.
Oh, absolute fuck fest.
No, I think if you've built up enough chat with somebody over let's face it could be like 9 to 12 weeks at this point, you're gonna want to see them, and then it might be, you know, that's going to be an interesting narrative plot arc. Where do you end it?
Exactly. And this has been Ciara Jack's last word. You can which has really been quite sweet, actually.
I know, right? Where the fuck did that come from?
Well, Ciara, where can they find you? Not for COVID hookups. I'm not trying to pimp you out over the Hoodcast.
No, please don't pimp me out on the podcast. You can find me for vacuity, illustrations, general crack, on @_Ciara Jack. Ciara spelled Ciara, as in Sierra. On Instagram and Twitter. I also have a Facebook page for my stand-up. I have one video on YouTube of my stand-up. But yeah, Instagram, I love Instagram. The community is so much nicer. Twitter is just pseudo-intellectual journalists going,
and sentient eggs using racial slurs.
Is that what yours is? Is yours just sentient egg and it's full of hate crimes?
Yeah, just like everything I see on there is just the most. Or it's either that, or someone's got like the British bulldog, or the flag. You know.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. Like if your profile picture is a Ford Fiesta,
Yeah.
I know you voted UKIP. Like
Exactly. Just you don't need to say it.
yeah.
But
If
But yeah, Twitter, Instagram, and the Unexceptionals, which is on Spotify.
all your favorite platforms, it's on all of them. Get
Awesome.
involved.
Well, this has been the Hoodcast with Ciara Jack. I have been your follically deprived host, Aaron Hood. Stay blessed, stay hydrated, and stay the fuck inside, you degenerates. Bye.